All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Dog Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. The day after Thanksgiving. Here we go. How's everyone feeling? Everyone thankful to be here this afternoon? I sure hope so.
I am very thankful for a lot of things, and I am very thankful for Dr. Olchuk because I'm back.
You got the new jibs.
Oh, the
nice.
jibs, the piano keys.
The
Look
teeth
at that.
are back. Eddie O's your doctor. You got Eddie Olchuk putting those teeth in? What's going on?
Olchuk's my doctor, and I walked in. I tried to deflect some blame. I said, Doc, I don't think the material you use for this bridge is as good as the other stuff. And she looked at it, and then she pulled out the Harry Dunn grinder and took it to it for 3 or 4 minutes. And then she put it back, and she goes, see? It's clean now.
Yeah, that's your problem, man. You got to stay on this kind of stuff, right? It's like a car. You drive through the back roads. You got to take it through the cleaner.
That's what she said. That's
like you got to mix in a
That's
car
what she
cleaner.
said on the way out. She goes, you know, we did a lot of work. It's like a fancy car. You got to take care. And I said, Doc, what do you? I brush them every day. I go, sometimes it might be once. I go, but I'm on it every day.
She must have accused you. That's where she went. She must have accused you. Like, if you just walked out of here and not brushed your jibs in 5 years.
That's
like,
right.
Like, was that what she was kind of insinuating at? Is like that you haven't maintenanced them as far as running a brush over them? Is that what
I
she was getting
tried
at?
to accuse Dr. Olchuk of not having legit material because I said, look at them. I said, they're like deteriorating. And she looked at me and she goes, that is exactly what teeth are supposed to look like. Then she got out the Harry Dunn drill and did like sizzle the coating off of them. And she put them back in and they're dynamite and brand new.
Well, there you go.
We love hearing that. Dr. Eddie Olchuk has figured it out, and your teeth are back and better than ever, and you're looking good, feeling good. And here we are on a Tuesday, right? It's weird to kind of recalibrate like post-Thanksgiving.
I know.
After eating that much, drinking that much. You know, it was a tough weekend, but we're back and feeling good.
I do have one thing to run by you guys. I had a buddy call me today, and I'm not lying. I didn't know how to react, but I was like, I'm going to have to bring this up on the show. And he's like, all right, whatever. So he's married, and he went to the family-in-laws for dinner, but there's a cover charge to get in.
What?
There's...
You had to pay to get into the house.
So it's like I'm like, was there entertainment? And it's like, no, it's just like everybody shares in the cost of the turkey and the.
Wow, I have never heard of that move, man. That's aggressive.
Dude,
it is.
Bring a pie and some ice cream and you're all set.
That's
I've
it.
Never heard of that.
Like, it's so easy to get around that. Say you bring an appetizer, you bring a salad, and that's basically your way of saying everyone's going to contribute. But hard, like straight cash, like a bouncer at the door,
like a cover charge to get in. It's like everybody.
Are they IDing people? Like, I feel like I'm trying to get into the Brunswick house again.
I was like, okay, I said, oh my God, like, and it was kind of funny, but it's like, I think it's accepted. It's like, the turkey's expensive, booze and all that. Like, let's just chip in. But like, it was like a hard number. It's like, okay, there's a number here,
right?
Like,
round it up, I'm sure. Too.
I'm sure.
If I'm chunking a hunch into a basket on the way in the door, I will explore every food item to make sure it's great, or I will toss a dessert across the room and say I want my money back.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. What happens with the leftovers? Are you walking out with your percentage?
You're telling me everybody chopped in the money and you got the best of the best?
I'm taking that pumpkin pie with me, man. That is mine. I could see grizzled vets just going to war over that. I paid my hunch. Dude, I want the stuffing.
I'll go lower than that. I'll bring a Ziploc bag and shove some dark meat and gravy in it and put it in my pocket on the way out the door. I will go to low levels.
You're right, though. The full inspection. This is a full blow. I would put a vest and a name tag on, and I would go through everything. That doesn't look like that is worthy of the money I spent. That's not going to cut it. There's no ice. I would have a full review.
38-pounder that looks like you're weighing the turkey to make sure it's the right weight.
I specifically paid for something, and I have not retrieved it. So I want a rebate.
That's a
I
first
want
that
money
I've
back.
heard. I was like, I'm sorry, I have to bring this to
That's
the
a
boys.
wild scene, man. That's a wild scene because, again, the way around that is, in general, every family works this way. You bring this, you bring that, and it's kind of understood. Hey, thank you for hosting. We get it. There's a lot that goes into that. But the idea of it, like you have a bill waiting for you, or there's a bouncer at the front door, that's a completely different level.
It's a
Straight cash, homie.
Straight cash. Like to your point, there better be like a DJ playing. There better be a dance floor and like after hours activities. There better be a lot coming to the table.
I had never heard of it.
Never heard of that.
That's a first.
That
for
is
me,
a first.
but-
That is a first. Well, there's a lot to get into today. We got the nail gun coming up later in the hour after that ball game last night in New York where the Bills win, the Bills cover. Hayes and Bro is absolutely on fire. The amount of people that are supporting Al's brother and I right now for what has been one of the great comebacks in professional sports history. I want to thank all of you on behalf of my partner and I. And Al's brother will be joining us later in the week as we turn the page to Week 7 and we look ahead. We don't gloat. We don't make demands that Farhan and Naylor need to start making picks. We don't act like clowns. We just go about our business, and that's how we operate.
There's been some people turning on us. I'm not going to lie.
Yes.
They're calling. They're giving it to us, but you never know. Maybe Doogie greased us to make this close.
Oh, really? You guys are throwing
dude,
games now?
I'm not going
Throwing
to get into
games?
There's
it.
been some allegations. I will say that. Like I've heard some whispers behind the scenes as to like those have been like some layups on the Hayes and Bro side. But I always say it doesn't matter. You put it in front of them, they have to pick the winner.
That's right.
Regardless.
Play
So,
the game, man. And last night, like the Jets had ample opportunities. If the kicker,
my God, if these kickers,
if
could get their
Zerline could
act
make a
together.
couple kicks, the Jets are 3-3, and moreover, the Bills would have lost 3 games in a row against quality competition in Baltimore, Houston, and New York. And then today they wake up and say, "Screw it, we're making trades." And Amari Cooper is going to the Bills. Davante Adams is going to the Jets. Neither team looks very good right now.
I was just going to say they both made a trade, and the Bills got the win last night. But I know Baltimore and Hayes, you can just agree. This is just my take on these two teams, and there's a lot of them in the league. You look at a team like Baltimore, they're kind of well-rounded. They started 0-2, but you watch them play against Washington. Like, they got a lot of stuff going on. They look like a real-deal serious team. Even with these trades, I don't think those two teams we watched last night are serious football teams. I really don't. Like, honestly, they just.
I agree with you in terms of Super Bowl caliber. One of them's going to win the division. Like both of them are.
One of
doing
them
this.
will, but as far as being a real deal, serious team where you're like, watch out for those guys down the stretch, I don't think either of them are.
I agree with you. I think Kansas City and Baltimore, those are the two teams looking at these moves by both teams and saying, "We're going back to bed. Good for you." Like good,
exactly
good for
what
you.
I thought their reaction would be.
Yes.
Like, we're going back to bed.
Not remotely concerned with what you two are doing. Now it's a long season, and both teams maybe they improve and everything comes together. And the Jets now have a new coach, and that offensive line maybe gets better. And
hey, 6 weeks from now we might have a different
can
conversation.
Change. Absolutely.
But as for right now, you're dealing with the right now, and as far as what they are. There just seems to be goofy mistakes, and it just doesn't seem like a real deal team.
They're a step below both of them. I totally agree with you on that. And, I mean, listen, credit to both of them for saying it's an arms race now. Like someone's going to get in and someone's going to have a home game in the playoffs. You win your division, you're going to get a home game. So there is a lot of value in that. And I think what was clear with the Bills is they need playmakers. And that's what Amari Cooper can bring them. So I appreciate why they did that. Josh Allen's a superstar. Rodgers, the body language on him, like Luke was talking about it after the game on with Jay last night. The body, he's so disgusted with everything, including the officiating, which I believe I'm agreeing with him on that. That game was an abomination to watch. The viewing experience was horrendous because there was a flag being thrown basically on every snap. Like over 200 yards of penalties should never be allowed in a professional football game. Like that's one where Goodell should be on the bat line calling in at half saying, "Stop it!
Yeah.
You cannot keep doing this. You're ruining this game."
I would imagine. Now there is. regardless of what people think, like in the National Hockey League, these guys get written up if they have a bad game. Like there's reviews of their game constantly. There has to be in the NFL. I would think those guys would have been written up and say, what the hell is going on here? Like that group together can't ref again.
Well, at a minimum, you revoke their
together.
Playoff options in the future, And listen, it's not alone. Like it's not exclusive to last night. This is a real epidemic in the NFL right now. There's way too many flags, way too many penalties. It's killing the vibe. And what it is it gets back to one of my oldest takes, and one that I believe over time will become almost unanimously accepted as the truth. That the constant reviewing is killing sports because what it allows for is people to believe that you can get it right all the time and perfection is attainable, and it's not. You can't have perfection in a 2.5-hour sporting window or 3-hour sporting window. You can't review every play. You can't do that.
I keep going back to you and saying it's impossible to not do it that way. Because there's fans watching the game with camera angles in their basement and and there'll just be chaos because they're going to be like, we got screwed. That's not the right call.
Who cares, though? That's my point. Let's get an adult in the room in every league and say, go ahead and complain on Twitter. We're not changing the product because you complain that your team got screwed. You can't run your operation based on fans saying, well, my team got screwed in this individual moment.
So you want every single game in the NFL and the NHL, you want them to be like the Buffalo Sabres fan base where all they say is we got screwed on that play.
Obviously the foot in the crease was an egregious, horrible miss that should never have happened.
But that's how every missed touchdown, every fumble, it's going to be an egregious miss.
It sucks when that happens. Matt Duchene offside, the pass interference with the Saints and the Rams back in the day. There have been examples where it's awful, and I get it. But the idea, this is what you're going to get. You want that last night? Because what happens is all these refs are like, if we miss a call, we're dead. So we better call everything. And that's what you're getting. You're getting the human element is actually creeping into sports, where everyone's like, we better call offside on that because if we missed it and it goes in, we're going to look stupid. We better call this. We better call that. And as a result, it stops and starts all the time. And, if you want to review scoring plays, that's a different story. You want to review, did the puck go in? Did the ball get caught? Go ahead. I'm not saying don't do that. Use technology to your best example. But the fact that we are falling almost victims to the fact that everyone does have that perfect angle and that perfect 4K view, and we're allowing the refs to be scared of getting it wrong, they're going over the top to make sure they get it right. And the product is suffering significantly because of that.
I agree. I think it should go back to just, you're right, like scoring plays or plays that affect the game, something like that, where, again, it's probably not a perfect science, but there is things where you're like, okay, the ref is like, I need to take another look at that. But there's plays where it's like in the third quarter and it's, a little hold here or something. Doesn't affect anything, but there's the flag and we got to go through the process.
It's awful.
Like, I think it is overkill.
Jamie, you did a game yesterday where I thought that LA King goal should have counted because I thought the guy ran into the goalie after the play.
Well, there were 15 total goals. Which one are we talking about?
Well, there was a play, Corey Perry, goaltender interference.
That was in Edmonton, yes.
Dude, there was a play, Corey Perry in Edmonton against Calgary. How they called that goalie interference is beyond me.
I agree with you on that. I thought that was a ridiculous one to call back.
Dude, that is insane. I would have stopped the game and pulled my players off the ice and just said, no way. I'm telling you. Where's the goalie interference?
Vladar walks into him.
Yeah, he engages him. Like, I had 2 goalie interference ones yesterday. And my whole narrative, because I'm not going to get them right every time, but my whole thing is the goaltender needs to be available, and it's his crease. He needs to be afforded the opportunity to make the save. That's just answer that question for me right there on any goaltender interference. So this one, there was slight, but to me, Vladar still throws the blocker out there.
He can make that save. Corey Perry is not stopping him from making the save.
Right. I didn't like the explanation of it where it's like he was in the area where he couldn't. Maybe the goalie can't come out to the top of the crease, but he's still in position to make that save and waves at it. He misses it. So, listen, that's a 50-50 one, but there were like yesterday I had one that was called back and then one that counted. The one that counted, I actually thought that was right because there was a touch on the glove, but Kemper was moving. It was on the blocker side. And I thought there's no way that touch on his glove affected the blocker save on the because he still pushed across. The goal, which would have been Brandt Clark's goal, where he runs into Forsberg, he hit Forsberg. Had the puck hit him and gone in cleanly, I think that was a goal. But it hit the post, and then he hit Forsberg, and then the puck went in. So Forsberg wasn't afforded the opportunity to try and make that save once it hits the post. So I thought they got him right yesterday. But it comes down to, you said it. I disagree with it. Hayes, you may disagree with it. Like, it's subject still to opinion.
That's the nature of a goaltender interference in particular, which is annoying. And whichever fan base is on the right or wrong side of it, they're going to say what they're going to say. But that was a pretty wild game, 8-7 yesterday.
Oh, my God.
And credit to Ottawa, I guess, in the end. They end up getting themselves, a win. And they needed that after they didn't play well in Montreal. And Travis Green wasn't happy. No one was happy with the way Ottawa played the other night in Montreal. So, there's a lot of craziness going on early in the season, just in the country. Edmonton's 0-3. The Flames are 3-0. It just, there's a lot of crazy stories. It's only a weekend. It's not technically a Monday. We're into a Tuesday, but it kind of feels like Overreaction Tuesday in the NHL, taking a page out of the NFL's book, where I think a lot of fan bases throughout the country, throughout the league, throw Colorado in there. They look horrendous.
Wow. Colorado's given up 20 goals.
They look horrendous.
In 3 games.
Yes.
20.
And
Edmonton has scored 3.
Edmonton, that's the crazy thing with Edmonton is McDavid and Draisaitl aren't doing anything. None of them are scoring.
They look disinterested. That whole team looks like either they got to snap out of it first and foremost, but they don't look like they're up to speed in the sharpness of the league right now. The league is
Take
quick.
30% of all of them, sharpness, energy, all of it, going on a
your
cup
body
run
language.
like that.
Body
language.
language.
And you take 30% of every guy in the locker room because they decided to run it back and bring everybody back that went on that cup run. You take 30% of jam out of everybody, that's a lot of zip out of the lineup. They're in a fog, and if they don't... Yeah. If they're not careful, man, I'm not going to jump to conclusion. They're going to be fine. But if they get stupid, it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot tougher to dig out of it than last year.
Well, you're playing with fire to do it twice in a row, right? Last year they were 3-9-1, I believe, in their first 13, or 2-9-1 in their first 12. And obviously, we know what happened. They went to Game 7 of the Cup final. And they still have the makings of they're one of the best teams in the league. But
here's the thing. Sorry to interrupt, Brian. Can you run that play? That goal alone speaks to me.
Was that the Anderson goal? I'm not watching.
That's the Anderson
goal.
That
was McDavid's defensively was horrendous.
No, but that's R&H, that's Hyman, and McDavid. All 3 of them got a pop at this. All 3 of them got a pop at that. And this guy goes, you know what? I'm just going to go score. To me, I would be more worried about that team if the bottom of their roster wasn't doing anything. That Arvidsson looks like their best player right now.
They're going to snap out of it and be okay, but it is a concerning start. And it does speak to, I think, understandably, how tough it is to get over the heartbreak of what they went through. You get to a Game 7, it's a quick turnaround. You got to go back to the start. It's so tough. You were in Florida with the cup in the building, Game 7, a chance to cement your legacy and do something that no one had ever done before, down 0-3 in a cup final, and then you lose, and you have to go back to the starting line and training camp and prepare for regular season. You have to, exactly. Every team does it. Every team does it. They have to do it. But they look like they're in a fog right now. And... Colorado's a mess. Yeah, there's some weird things going on. All right, Dave Naylor later in the hour on what's going on in the AFC East. Bills and Jets making moves. What he thought of the game last night. He was in New York. And we'll come back and get back into the Leafs. They had their home opener on Saturday night. They're back in action tomorrow night with the Kings in town. We saw what happened with the LA Kings in Ottawa yesterday. So we'll start turning the page and start teeing that up. And Mike Johnson on the show today. Chris Johnston coming up. Confirm and deny later this afternoon. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel. Bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. So we got Dave Naylor later in the hour on the wide receiver deals In the AFC East, Davante Adams to the Jets, Amari Cooper to the Bills. His take on the game last night, he was in New York. Mike Johnson coming up as well. The Leafs are back in action tomorrow night, coming off their home opener Saturday, and the annual tradition of people complaining about the crowd on opening night happens every year.
Well, what's the problem?
Every year. Well, not loud enough. It wasn't really a crazy introduction. It never is. It
wasn't exactly a robust welcoming the players to the ice.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it because part of it is that. Again, I'm saying this genuinely. I don't know how well it translates on TV anyway. Any of these big events, so I've had experiences where I've been in the building and I've thought it was really loud or something was, the crowd was kind of crazy, and then I'll get on the phone and someone at home saying, "Oh, it didn't sound that crazy." I don't know if it actually translates properly. But also, the Leafs are just it's not a big pompous event. It's not like at the Bell Center with Montreal and other places. There's no banner going up. The core four is back. I just don't know what you're expecting after they lost in the first round again last year.
Dude,
what do you want fans to do? Yell and scream and do cartwheels down the aisle because they're all back?
Yelling and screaming would be ideal, but
that would be great.
But that's just not what they do.
Not how it works.
I'm tired of complaining about it or looking for something different. Unless there is a massive third period comeback or something to that effect during a regular season game, like a Revo fight that gets everybody cooking, you're not going to see crazy behavior in the stands. It's educated, like a traditional. That's just what they do, man. There's no changing it. It'll never change.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest. I watched. I didn't even think twice about it. I mean, that's you're watching a game. You hope the team wins. They look good. They won. I don't know what the problem was. Other than you're right. Like certain buildings, they pop because of either the atmosphere they build up, the team is excited, or it happens to be a market that's how the fan base treats it.
It's pretty simple. You get a bunch of guys that are going on the TTC that, they bought let's say they were going to a different building and they were just hammering a bottle of booze on the TTC and the tickets were $50 or something, and they're hooting and hollering and pre-gaming, as opposed to business transactions where it's like, I'm taking you to a Leaf game. That's a different vibe, man.
It is. And look at the Ryder Cup tickets came out recently, and on the weekend they're charging $750 to get to Bethpage Black, which is in Long Island. They're obviously expecting, people from New York to be there. And the reason they're doing that is because they want it to cool off a bit. They don't want it to be crazy. They don't want a guy paying $20 a ticket and having 45 Bud Lights and
puking in the bush,
falling onto the green on 17. So how do they alleviate that? They're charging a fortune. And there's a comparison to that.
You worry.
They probably will. But and again, with Leaf fans, parts of the building are packed in different elements and different times and comebacks and OT winners. But ultimately, I think if you're a fan and you're watching them through 3 games, I think you should be happy with the way things are going. I think the additions, Ekman Larsson's looked really good. Chris Tanev's looked really good. Their top 4 looks like a top 4. All of a sudden. Morgan Riley's just kind of blended into that. I think Jake McCabe, who was injured for a lot of camp, has looked very good, very aggressive, very physical. I think they've weathered some storms with Joseph Wall not being available and Hill to be going in, and Stolarz has looked good through 2 starts. And I think they're in a good place. And we've got it up on the screen right now. Again, it's according to FanDuel, and odds are always subject to change, but they've got them tied with Florida in terms of the best chance to win the division this year. And based on what I've seen out of all these teams, and I haven't seen every single shift from every team, I think that's probably appropriate. That's probably where they should be. They look good.
All it takes is for those odds 1 solid week and they flip-flop.
They flip right back into it. Man.
Wow, that's
right
awesome.
Back into it.
Bandwagoners, I love it.
I think it's too early to even, I want to at least tomorrow. They play tomorrow, right?
Yeah, they play LA tomorrow.
Noodles, it is too early, but based on if it's just you're going off a 1 week sample, it's probably appropriate. But that's all it is 1 week. Next week it could be completely different.
Tomorrow will be their first kind of test because they'll be playing a playoff team from last year. Now, New Jersey, I think, is a good team that they beat. So that's, but that's where you start to, measure yourself against other teams and go, okay, like this looks good. I like their first 3 games. I think they look good. They look organized. They look like they're playing with some jump and some bite. And, I think they are in a good place. I'd be interesting to see what's going to happen with Joseph Wall. What are they going to do with Hildeby? What are they going to, there is still.
That's crazy. He didn't even what did he take? 2 shots today?
Yeah, he practiced with the team. I don't think it's, he's not pushing it necessarily. Like, they're obviously going to just take their time and wait this out. We still don't know exactly what's going on. It's lower body tightness. But the fact that Wall, it's been a week, it's been 3 games. He could be activated. He could play tomorrow night. We all know that's not going to happen. I have no idea when he's going to return or when he's going to play. It's going to likely happen in the next, I would think, week or 2. But this is what we knew with Joseph Wall, is that right when he went on the IR, there was no guarantees when this guy's coming back. But again, it's not a big issue because Stolarz has played well and Hildeby played well in his start. Like, again, at some point you're going to need him because I don't think Hildeby's ready for 30, 35 starts in the NHL. And I don't think Stolarz is ready for 55 starts in the NHL. You're going to need Joseph Wall. But early in the season, they've weathered the storm. I think they've played pretty well defensively. I think their penalty kill's been big. And I think that's what sticks out, from a tangible, like symbolic gesture of, Craig Berube and what could be different here is the fact that they are committed to Matthews killing penalties. Like, he is putting up 2-3 minutes of penalty kill coverage every single night. Again, only 3 games. Absolutely, why not? Like, Keefe obviously had a strategy, and I understood what it was. Take advantage of the opposition when they come off the power play. Get 34 out there when the other team's third line's on or fourth line trying to recover after a power play and let him pounce. And I think there's a lot of logic in that. Yep. But there's also logic in the idea that you put an emphasis on a different part of the game, and that is keeping the puck out of your net and being a guy that can contribute in every possible facet of the game. Power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5. And Matthews has been clearly capable of that for a long time. And Craig Berube is saying you're going to do it. And
I love
to Matthews'
Hayes.
credit, he's like, let's do it, man. He's doing a great job so far.
I love it. The way the game is called nowadays, and we've seen it even through the first week, if there's a first period on the road or whatever where you take 3 or 4 penalties, I don't care how good the player is, you can lose a guy. If he sits on the bench for 7 or 8 minutes or whatever in the first period, you're basically like, well, how am I going to get into this one? It rolls over into the second period. Your best player is always around or on the ice or impacting the game in some fashion.
Yeah.
You want him involved. And a guy that good, he can make something happen shorthanded, and he's just out on the ice as opposed to not. That's what I like about it.
Well, what it is they're a threat. Like, the power play has the extra guy, but you also have to be mindful. It's like, those guys can go the other way real quick. So let's not try that little feather through the middle and let's not dink around a little bit. So it actually might change the way you attack on the power play, having guys who are threats at the top of the umbrella there. So, listen, I agree with you. It keeps top players engaged and in the game where the legs aren't sitting there for 7 minutes or 4.5 minutes because you don't get a change coming out of the penalty, all of these types of things. It doesn't cool them off. It keeps the engine going. So there's lots of positives that come out of that. The only thing on the reverse side is if you need extra minutes for them, if you're chasing the game, you got to be mindful of that. There'll be nights where you have to, double down on them to bring him up if you need an extra goal.
Go for it. He's 27 years old. He's the highest paid player in the league. There should never be any reason not to play him. And doesn't mean you drive him into the ground, but you pick your spots. And if you're a good team, which they are, chances are you're going to be in the lead more often than not over the course of a season. Right? If you end up with 105 points or 110 points, if you win more than you lose, it's pretty simple math. You're going to be in the lead more. So
what is this board? Captain Concern? Did Joe from the Bridge make that?
I guess.
Oh, it's probably it's a Sports Center one. I guarantee you, because it's what is wrong with Matthews.
So this is about goal scoring, I guess. Through 3 games last year, he had 6 goals. This year he doesn't even have any points, which is pretty wild. He also didn't have any assists last year through 3 games. He's not playing nearly as many. He's still playing 21 minutes a night. There is no concern when it comes to Auston Matthews and him scoring goals.
Take that red thing off of this board, please. And if you'd like, you can show last season.
How would you label that? Not Captain Concern. interesting thoughts. Like, how do you label that appropriately? Because it's, I mean, those are facts. Like, those are literally, that's a statistic. Like, it's not like it's some opinion from Joe from the Bridge. He had 6 goals through 3 games last year. He has 0 through 3 this year. I agree. Concern is very rich and, quite frankly, over the top. It's not concerning at all. This guy is still ripping a million shots on net.
Change of captain. Who wrote that?
Change of captain. I like that.
This guy is
That's interesting. Put it back to Tavares. This guy puts an A on his jersey. He rips home 70 this year. The captaincy alone. Could it be an anchor for Auston Matthews? Have we reached something here where maybe we need to be driving home this chat?
If we all had to pick a red label for that board, it would be quick, comma, not so quick. Right? Last year, out to a quick start, 2 hat tricks, and it just hasn't happened that quick.
What? Might not fit in the amount of words. Try to write that out, George. I don't think
quick,
George,
not
Joe.
So quick.
Yeah, it might not fit all the like. What they do is they need a catchphrase. This is what's the.
Hayes, what would your billboard be, Hayes?
I guess it's got to be hot start. Not so hot, hot, not so hot, or something like that offensively. But again, I think his game overall has still been very good. And I looked up the stat from when he ripped home 60 a couple years ago in 21-22. He did not score a goal in the first 3 games, and he only had 1 in the first 6 that year. He went on to rip home 60 total.
Did he? Did he have any assists in there to kind of?
Well, I'm sure he had some assists. I didn't even look at the assists. Like the fact that he has no points through 3 games is a very peculiar stat, and you would have probably got big plus money on that prop prior to game 1.
But it's right now. You mentioned it at the start of the show. It's kind of bizarro world in the league. Like, I think, does McDavid have a point? I think he's got 1.
He got 1 the other night on the Draisaitl goal.
I think Draisaitl's got a goal. Like, I think.
Captain Snake Bitten, would that work? Could it be something like that?
What about this one?
Why the captain?
The desert dog is thirsty.
The desert dog is thirsty.
There's a good one.
He will be thirsty because you can tell he's getting frustrated. He's not scoring.
Parched or non-parched?
Now we're on to something.
I don't know.
Leave that to Joe from the Bridge. He knows what he's doing. But
well, you scolded him for the first one.
I did.
It was outrageous. That first one was outrageous.
What,
Captain Concern.
Captain Concern. They're 2-1. They're rolling along, and Al's brother, Joe from the Bridge, is concerned about Matthews. I would be shocked if he doesn't rip one home tomorrow night. Like I said on with Jay last night, there is a storm brewing. Like, McDavid's going to have a 5-point night in the next 2 or 3 games. Like, he is going to snap out of it and step on the ice and say, I don't care who I'm playing. I am destroying you tonight.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that's coming, and I guarantee you Matthews has I wouldn't be shocked if tomorrow night, you just saw the Kings play. You saw it up close and personal, Noodles. They, like, without Doughty, he may have 15 shot attempts and 3 goals tomorrow night. I would not be surprised if Matthews came out absolutely firing on all cylinders.
I agree, but I think LA is a good team that kind of just were out to lunch yesterday, and they couldn't get a save either on either side. You could not get a save. I think the save percentages on both sides was like 70%.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Like 70. Like it was one of those afternoons where it was like, I'm not lying, sitting between the benches. Every puck that got thrown towards the net, I had a view of it. I'm like, that's going in the net. And you could see the goalies couldn't find it. It was a bonkers game, like absolute ridiculous game. And I even said going into overtime, I think both coaches would be happy that they got 1 point out of it based on one team gave up 8 and one team gave up 7. And they still got points out of it, which is crazy. But I think you'll see a different LA team tomorrow.
You might, but I'm not even saying it's about LA. Just like whoever McDavid plays, I don't think it matters when you're that good and you have been kind of iced out.
Yeah.
How do you stop it? Like, go ahead. LA can be great. It does. I don't care who McDavid plays in the next week. He is going to destroy one of these teams. He's unstoppable when he wants. And the same thing with Matthews. There's nothing you can do if he's in the mood and he's dancing and he's like, I'm scoring tonight. It's unstoppable. Like, unless it just hits posts and a goalie stands on his head miraculously, I don't think Jim Hiller and company can put a game plan together tomorrow night that's going to have him only have 2 shot attempts. I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah. He is going to be involved tomorrow night.
Both of them, very true.
Yes.
You're not stopping.
Like, that's going to happen. And maybe it doesn't break their way, but I would be shocked if I walked out of the building tomorrow night saying, what a game plan by LA. They just 34 never got going. I think he gets going. I think he gets going tomorrow night. All right, Mike Johnson on this and more in about 20 minutes. Confirm or deny still to come. The nail gun coming up. He was in New York, Jets, Bills. What does he make of the trades they made today? The body language on Aaron Rodgers. What was up with the officiating last night? Lots to get into it. Dave Naylor, OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Mike Johnson coming up. Confirm or deny later this afternoon. Major League Baseball playoffs continuing. The Yankees are up 1-0 in their series. They're looking to go up 2-0. Stanton is a playoff performer, man. He just mashes. And Judge is doing nothing. Nothing. And it doesn't matter. I mean, they cruised through Kansas City. Feel pretty good about them beating Cleveland. And then we'll see what happens, come the World Series. But that was a big win by the Mets yesterday. That series tied 1-1 going back to New York. So we'll get more into that into the next hour. But speaking of New York, last night was something. It was like an ugly football game with lots of penalties.
That's what it was. It was something.
It was something.
Terrible.
Yet it was compelling because it was close. And it was a meaningful game because one of these two teams is going to win the division. And I guess the Bills have the upper hand now with that win last night. Here's our TSN football insider, Dave Naylor. Dave, you were in the building last night. I described it as something. That's how I would describe that football game. How would you describe it seeing it live?
It was chaotic. It was like stop, start. It was not a well-played game. And here's the weirdest thing about that game, right? I'm thinking about it this morning about, just the nature of every team just kind of giving it back to the other and all the flags and all of that. It felt like a game that had 6 turnovers. It had 1.
Right.
1 at the end of the game. I couldn't say that either team played particularly well, but the one thing they both did, at least for 59 minutes, was protect the football. I mean, Allen had a fumble that they got back, and Rodgers makes that big throw at the end where he's come out now and said that Mike Williams was in the wrong place, and Taron Johnson shows why he's one of the best slot corners in the NFL with the way he makes that interception. But it was a weird – the flags in the second half, really. I mean, it was funny just being in the press box, like the eye rolls that, I'm making with people I don't know. Just about, are you kidding me? That was something else.
Naylor, my first assessment after the game was both of these teams just don't seem like real deal Holyfield teams, like not serious contenders. Both have elite quarterbacks. One's 39 years old, but they both do some weird stuff. Just as you and Hayes were both describing this, if you could fast forward 6 weeks from now with both of them making an impact transaction today, who would you guess would be that one team that's more morphing into a serious team? Would it be the Jets or the Bills?
I think it's going to be the Bills because I just don't believe that you can kind of turn a loser into a winner overnight. I think there's something culturally that goes to that. And I also don't believe that. I think in football, when you reach for that one person that you have to have, and then you go all in because you've gone after, and this could be a player, this could be a coach, this could be a GM. When somebody is sort of like, this is the guy who's going to solve it, and when they worked with Tom Brady and the Bucks, and again, they didn't change everything for him. They added Gronk, and I'm sure there were things they made scheme wise to adjust to Brady. But think of the Herschel Walker trade. Right? I mean, I'm just thinking of there's so many instances in football. Chip Kelly with the Eagles, there's a coach, right? Oh, we got to do everything that he wants. Disaster. And I just don't think that works in football. And look, the commonality between these two teams, as you suggest, is you've got two big-armed quarterbacks, neither of whom were having much success throwing the ball down the field deep. I mean, Garrett Wilson gets thrown to underneath, and he's a yards-after-catch machine, and he's been very efficient. Alan Lazard had a big total last night because of the Hail Mary, but he's had the dropsies all season. And the Bills, I mean, they tried to throw it deep twice in the 2 games where they got behind, and you kind of have to. And this is the thing I kept saying about this team. When they have to throw it, they haven't proven they can do it. When they lead with the run, establish the run as they did last night. I mean, the first series, 9 plays, 8 of them were runs. And if you look at all of their wins, that's what they've done. They've established the run early. They throw short and medium passes. They get yards after catch, and Josh sprinkles in some magic, here and there along the way. But I would think that in 6 weeks, And here's the other part of that, Jeff. If you look at schedules, the Bills have just come through their toughest part of the schedule. At Miami, which, when Tua was healthy. At Houston. At Baltimore. Those were tough games. And now they go into a softer stretch starting this week where they play Tennessee.
Nail gun, the one thing I took away last night is looking at the disgusted face of Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you were up close in person. What do you make of this guy? His body language, he looked like he wanted to kill somebody. Maybe his kicker outside of that. But, I mean, to me, this guy's had bad body language for the last couple of weeks. So what do you make of it, and what do you make of his effort last night?
I think he's a guy, if he can't do things his way, the way he wants to in his environment and get the people he wants around him, I don't think he'd play anymore. He doesn't need to, right, at age 40. And you can look at just even when he gets hit. You can certainly see the optics of what it's like taking sacks as a 40-year-old, when you get up from those. And that's one thing that, Tom Brady managed to avoid through most of his play during his 40s. But, you talk about calling your shot, Noodle. Think of this. Remember in the summer, right before training camps open, and Aaron Rodgers, I think he was at a golf tournament or something, and somebody stuck a microphone in his face and asked him about Davante Adams, and his response was, he's one of the best receiver in the NFL, greatest guy I ever played with. I really look forward to playing with him again. Remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Everyone's like, what? I mean, again, even the day, I probably told you guys this in the summer, the day that I spent around the Jets, I spent 2 days at Jets camp this year. And both times, and I'm around NFL teams. I know how this works. It's not like this at every team. Both times, it was a mystery whether Aaron Rodgers was going to talk to the media. And he did talk on the second day, but they had this whiteboard where they had, the names of the guys who were going to talk, and Aaron Rodgers' name was not on it. And we kind of asked the media relations people, and they shrugged. And whoever got done, C.J. Mosley or whoever gets done, and everyone's just kind of sitting there looking at each other. And all of a sudden, somebody from the media staff just comes and walks up and says, Aaron will be here in 10 minutes. But it was last minute. You can't plan around it. Mm-hmm. That's not how other NFL teams operate. This is a unique environment. And so they Nathaniel Hackett, who was his OC in Green Bay, he's been stripped of his play calling duties now. He clearly didn't get along that well with Robert Saleh, I think we can see from what we saw on the sidelines. And now they've added the guy he's anointed as the best receiver in the NFL.
With Dave Naylor, our TSN Football Insider. So, Davante Adams traded from the Raiders to the Jets today, and then the Bills counter by acquiring Amari Cooper almost immediately from Cleveland. So, with those two moves now as a part of this division and a part of this race, which will have a bigger impact in determining who ends up winning this division, Cooper in Buffalo or Adams in New York?
I think Cooper in Buffalo, because it's a bigger upgrade to the receiving core based on what's already there. I mean, you look at, Garrett Wilson is a top-tier receiver in the National Football League. And, guy had 1,000 yards receiving in the last 2 years with Zach Wilson as his quarterback. And he's certainly, 22 targets they threw to him in the game in London the other day. Mm-hmm. So, he's a guy and he had a 100-yard game. I believe he did last night as well. So back-to-back 100-yard game. Mike Williams isn't doing anything for them. But again, on paper, he's talented. Alan Lazard, again, not an elite guy. But I think if you take their top three and say, okay, Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and, measure it up against who the Bills' top three at receivers are, where you're talking about Khalil Shakir, who's an incredibly efficient receiver, but he's not a big play guy. He's had 21 balls thrown his way. Mm-hmm. He's caught 20 of them. And he very quietly set an NFL record between the end of last regular season and this start of this season for the most consecutive throws his direction caught. He's a really good receiver, but he's not a guy who's necessarily going to bust open the top of a defense. You've got Keon Coleman, who's a rookie, and at times, looks like a rookie. They just released Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So, you look at, who's on there. And Mac Hollins, who, was a limited snap kind of special teams player. He's playing 80% of the snaps last night. He got a touchdown. He almost had two. But again, he's not anybody's idea, I don't think, of even a top three receiver, never mind a top two. So I think when you add Amari Cooper to the Bills, and look, and that's for this season. Okay, here's the other part of this trade. A year or two now, what is the effect of taking on the two full salary years at $35 million per in 25 and 26 of Davante Adams with the Jets, when Aaron Rodgers may not even be there, the Bills take Cooper's contract on. It was all restructured into signing bonus by the Browns in the offseason. His base is like going to cost them $800,000 the rest of this year, and he's a free agent after this year. If the Bills decide he's a good fit and they get impact from this, yeah, they can sit down and do a deal with him. At age 31, he would be next year. Or they can let him walk. There's no residual to this on Buffalo. So I think in the now, in terms of the impact and how this move could drag a franchise down in the future, I think the Bills are on the right side of both of that.
Yep, I agree with you. Great stuff, Nail Gun. Always appreciate it. Thank you for this.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on, guys. Take care.
Dave Naylor, our TSN football insider. A couple of big deals, and, one of these teams is going to win the division. Miami's not. The Patriots aren't. And, again, we're only through 6 weeks. We've got a lot of football left to be played. All right, we've got a big hour coming up. Mike Johnson will join us. Cameron Maben back on the show. Awesome guest, talking ball, his take on where we're at with the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, etc. Do you see the picture of the mayor of New York, too, he's in a bad place.
Wow.
the
Really
Yankees
bad place.
And the Mets
He
hat?
had the Yankee and Met hat on. Like, that's so offside. You got to pick one or the other, man. You're not a fan of both. Can't pull that move off. So we'll get into that more coming into the next hour. And, again, back into the Leafs-Kings tomorrow night. What's going on out in the province of Alberta? And there's a lot of other stories throughout the NHL with MJ that we will touch on. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.